Meeting for March 7th. Full board's here. Administrator Jones, Permanent Board, Trish, so calendar correspondence.
I have confirmed KONP for you on CT. And I did RSVP, you see on the 13th, I RSVP for Commissioner's Office, Commissioner Beach for the Transit and Awards. I think it starts at 2. There's more detail on the calendar. Pretty quiet week this week.
And on the 17th, or any of the other commissioners? Oh, yeah.
You'll be out. What are your dates, Bill? 16th, 17th, 18th?
Yeah, I'm going in for surgery on the 16th, and then the next 2 days I'll just lay around and watch TV. And they're just fixing me.
I have an email that they wanted to confirm people's availability for the Board of Natural Resources on April 5th. Are you, will you be there?
It looks fine.
And then the Salish Behavioral Health Organization, the strong preference for the meeting with all of the boards, Kitsap, Jefferson, and Clallam, is April 1st from 10 to 1 in Jamestown. So I will need to do a special meeting notice for that. I will put it on your calendar. Is there a conflict for anyone?
Not this time.
Mike? Any conflicts?
Yeah, I doubt if I'll go to that meeting. I'll just be about 5 minutes, so just schedule it.
Okay, okay, I think they wanted all
That's fine.
the board members to do it.
They're doing that at the Jamestown
Jamestown.
office? Yeah. I'll be there.
You're there. I'm only there. Which one is me there?
You might have some controversial things you can add, because it will harm
I
you.
don't know if they want me to be there.
Okay, anybody else have anything for calendar that I don't have?
I've never had that correspondence.
Okay,
I'm sorry, the Jamestown meeting is 10 to 1?
10 to 1 on April 1.
They usually don't go that long, do they?
No, this is a special meeting. So, yeah, with all the county commissioners from all 3 counties because of all of the severe challenges that we're facing with the combination of chemical dependency and mental health and all the problems they're having in Western State and et cetera.
It's good timing.
It's probably early because the legislature is probably, I mean, it could be that you guys just start up a conversation about what the legislature does with their budget.
Yeah, well, I would imagine that part of the timing is planning to make sure that whatever message the legislature gets from the counties is coordinated and accurate.
You know, the trend, like Western's a very good example. What was proposed in the legislature was basically delegating to the counties. You know, try as much as possible to close the facility. Here's your $2. Good luck. You know, that's just not fair.
No, the system is broken for everybody.
The real cost of the county down the road.
Yes.
And I think it's been talked about it internally, so you guys are going to have to be aware of that. Huge costs.
Could be over down here.
Well, when it spills over into the prosecutor, I mean, there's all kinds of things. Theoretically, there's going to be more money coming as a result of the VHO group that is being run by Kitsap that we're partnering in, but nobody knows how much that's going to be, how much of that is going to be used for mental illness wilderness issues, and it's certainly from what I understand, I haven't heard anybody talking about the ability to use any of that money for the new prosecutorial work we have to do for the involuntary commitments and that kind of stuff that used to be done through KidSAP. So it's got some really big monetary issues at it.
Hence the meeting with all of the county commissioners.
Correspondence?
You have a letter from the Clallam County Marine Resources Committee thanking you for the opportunity they had to brief you on their work, and they'd like to continue by doing quarterly updates.
You good?
And a letter from the PUD regarding the Carlsborg sewer project, and I'm going to let Administrator Jones follow up with that.
This letter came in Friday. It was written to me from Doug Nass, but CC'd all of you and all of their commissioners, which then makes it a public record. And so I thought it would be best to at least make sure you were aware of it, allow any discussion. I know Commissioner Peach, by coincidence or happenstance, happened to talk to one of their commissioners after he became aware of the letter. He talked to me about it. Anyway, I have proposed, or I called Friday morning after I got this. I met with Mary Ellen Winborn and Steve Gray and Bob Martin and Ross Tyler Friday to talk about some of the allegations that are in here about us not following through or not, keeping up our end of the old interlocal agreement, and we just don't believe that that's true. We think we have completely not only followed it to this point, but intend to in the future. And so I thought there's some miscommunication, there's a worry about, we need to get to the bottom of this, and perhaps a joint meeting was what I was going to propose to talk to you about, a joint meeting with their board and our board sometime in April after we get the contract signed and we get the new, because we've got a new hydrological study coming.
I would strongly suggest you and Bob make an appointment, go down to the PUD, talk to them privately before we take this public, find out what their concerns are. You guys should be able to smooth it out before we can get the boards involved.
Okay.
That's your job, to work on the other agencies and get these things taken care of before they get to the board level. So that letter is pretty innocuous. They've been asking for some things that the staff should be able to give them. I think a one-on-one meeting.
Right.
Go down there, show them respect. Go down there, take Bob. Okay. Mary Ellen if you need to.
Okay.
And that's what I would
Happy to do it. In fact, that was the message I left out.
We're never going to reach the issue. Everyone's just going to dance around. And we're still going to tell you to get the staffs together. So if you guys come up with something that needs to be signed, then we can have a joint board meeting. But
No, it's a good credit. I talked to you after, and what I really think is going on is just exactly what you're sharing. It's the need for, not necessarily at the commissioner level. Yeah, it's the nuts and bolts guys.
Yeah.
We need to sit down to
please go down there.
Happy to. Yeah, and that was the message I left Doug on Friday. I said, Doug, I think we need to talk. I'm surprised you sent this letter instead of just calling me, but I said, I'd like to come down and see you and call back. He hasn't called me back yet. Okay. I'll do that.
And reach some agreement and bring it back to the board.
Okay.
So they just feel probably a little, they have some concerns, and I think they probably don't even know everything we've done to alleviate their concerns. So there's some miscommunication, but they will work it out.
Okay.
Any other correspondence?
That's all I have.
Okay. Proposed amendments to policy 950 veterans assistance.
Come on up, Jeff.
They're starting to like it along.
These policy changes that you have are recommendations from the Veterans Committee. So I'll leave it up to them to explain what and why.
All right. If I may, I'll briefly explain who we are, just so everybody's aware of what the Northwest Veteran Resource Center is. If that's all right. So I said, my name is Jeff Race. I'm the administrator of the Northwest Veteran Resource Center. and board president for the Green Alliance for Veteran Education, a nonprofit, local nonprofit here that works with veterans and their families and helps folks get into education, primarily in green fields. The primary goal of the Northwest Veteran Resource Center is to assist veterans and their families accessing local, state, federal resources that we have around here. As a veteran myself, I can tell you when I returned home, it was very tough to find access for help. You get home and you get this idea, I'm just going to work, I'm going to do what I have to do to survive. And you do that. But oftentimes things start coming up that you don't expect. And myself, it came under the idea of going back to school. And I was raising my 3 kids along with my wife, and I got some pretty tough spots. I was directed by a gentleman, we're right here, Dick Stumbaugh. This is many years ago. He said, have you heard of the Veteran Relief Fund in Clallam County? And I said, I have no idea what that is, sir. And he goes, it's here as an emergency to help veterans and their families get by and survive. And I said, I don't need anything, I'm fine. I don't want to take any kind of handouts. And in a very polite manner, he told me to shut up and come down and see him down at the office, and he was going to assist me. I went down and he informed me about this. With this idea, I was shocked that here was this great resource I'd never heard of. There's a wonderful person that was running this resource. And again, never heard of this stuff as a veteran. I'd never heard any of the veterans talking about it either. And so, working with Dick Stumbaugh and Tammy Sullinger, I said, can I go ahead and start compiling resources for veterans in this area? And Dick handed me a nice little one-page list saying, here you go. Go ahead and take these numbers, start putting it out to the veterans and their families. So I did. I later became a contractor with the State Department of Veterans Affairs, where my boss down there said, go forth and do good things. And one of the things he put on my list was to start compiling a resource booklet for veterans in some of the close counties. I'll pass these around if you guys want to take a look at it. So, as I said, the Northwest Veteran Resource Center, that's our main goal, is to connect veterans with these resources. Starting basically with just this resource booklet that is updated every few months. We put this information out to these veterans and their families through a distribution list that Tammy has, that Tammy graciously passed on to me. We put this information out. Now, while I'm the spokesperson for the office, I am by no means the real worker. The real workers, the people that do the amazing stuff, as you see on the back of that resource book with all the names there, the people that really do the work are out here in the audience. We have work studies like Chris and Sherry, and volunteers like Teresa, and along with multiple signers and members of the Clallam County Veterans Association out there. They're the people that really do the work. I'm just a mouthpiece. So, in essence, we connect these veterans with resources when they come in. They're the ones that are at the front desk manning this stuff that help them primarily. But when it comes down to the Veterans Relief Fund, I'm the person that is there to interview and talk to veterans and their families that come in for assistance. So I'm the one that is on the front lines, answering these questions, or asking the questions, the tough questions sometimes, and doing my best to be a guardian of taxpayer money. Now, while I do the initial interview, the Clallam County Veterans Association, the signers there are the ones that then I have to go before them and basically plead the veteran's case to them and say, this is what's going on, this is the veteran, this is what they need help with, or this is the veteran's family member, and this is what they need help with. They ask me a lot of questions, sometimes very tough questions, and sometimes I don't have all the answers. I have to go back and get those answers before they will sign off on this relief fund. And I do my best to do that. So, in the process of doing this, I guess it's been about a year now that I've been running the Veterans Relief Fund under their guidance. And we've found some hitches, some things that we need to shore up to ensure that taxpayer money is being properly watched over. And we've been doing our best. This policy change that's before you folks today, this is some of the things that are going to help do that. Instead of going through the red line version that you folks have in front of you, I think it'll save us a lot of time, thanks to some assistance in our off time Tammy Solinger actually put together a bullet point for us, bless her heart. She's working way too many hours overtime. Anyways, so if you guys have bullet points, I can kind of go over with you, and you can stop me at any time, ask me questions, ask me tough questions. You don't have a copy of the bullet point? Well, my goodness. All right, I was hoping you have
We have just the red line version.
just the red line version.
Which go around me.
Was included in the agenda packet, the same.
I didn't make it for some reason.
Well, while we're doing that, I can continue, I can talk a little bit more about what we do here. The other aspect we have, since we are a nonprofit that oversees the Northwest Veterans Resource Center, our nonprofit says the Green Alliance for Education. One of the things we do is we have the Robin Hill Veterans Garden that the county has been very kind to let us use some of the property out there. We have an MOU out there to use some of the property. I think it's for 3 years to help veterans and their families grow and have ecotherapy. We have approximately, what are we up to now? About 12 gardeners, I think, out there, Sherry?
Yes.
Yeah, about 12 gardeners, veterans and family members that come out and use garden plots. We provide the space, we provide the irrigation, we provide the seeds. We even do a little weeding if necessary to help them out for some of these veterans that may be having some mobility challenges. So the Veterans Garden, we have raised beds out there as well that we have built and put together. And as I said, this is not just about veterans, it's about their families as well. We have provide, you hear a lot of talk nowadays about veterans, but the missing piece is their families as well. And so we also provide that. That is based out of the 216 South Francis as well as the Resource Center itself. All right, so now that we got this, thank you very much, sir. I think these copies. So some of the policy changes. Some of this stuff is very basic, like changing the veterans coordinator, assistant is changed to employee and contractor. I don't think we need to go over little detail, just like name changes. However, if you want, I will. Some of the big stuff, the second bullet point, 3.1, no assistant we consider without required documentation. Tammy has been doing that anyway. She was doing that when she was running it. We are very careful, and I continue to do that. If I miss something, it is pointed out very quickly by the CCBA members who come in and sign. And I have dropped the ball, or I forgot to get somebody to talk to a service officer at one point. That's on the list. Have them talk to a service officer about getting benefits. And I've had a CCBA member go, hey, did you steer it towards a service officer? And I went, oops, I'll make sure that happens. And do something until it happened. So, the big ones, some of the big changes here, 3.3. This is one of the big changes. Dependents over 18 and no older than 23 can be considered, and they can be considered dependents if they're currently enrolled full-time in school or an institution of higher education. Proof of enrollment will be required. Now, the reason why this was changed is it falls in line with VA standards. If we're working with veterans, I think it's extremely important that we maintain and try to keep kind of the same standards, well, actually better standards than the VA has. With their policies, they consider a veteran, a child, a dependent, if they are still enrolled in college. In fact, they actually pay a veteran more money a month for a child that's enrolled in college, up to the age of 23. It made sense to myself, it made sense to the CCBA to go ahead and put our Veterans Relief Fund in line. We have veterans that have kids that are in college that are coming in that are struggling. We want to try to support, because if not, these kids may end up dropping out of school to try to help with the household. So we have included that in there now, changed that piece. Are there any questions about that at all, or concerns? Okay. The next one, there was some questions about having veterans, and we had a long discussion about this in the CCDA, about having multiple veterans in a household. How do we work that? Well, the truth is you work it the same way you have if you have two veterans that are living next to each other. It doesn't matter. A veteran is a veteran is a veteran. And each veteran is given a certain allotment of funding, which I'll talk about later on, through the Clallam County Veterans Relief Fund. So there was no real change there. We We just wanted to make sure it was addressed. I would put it in there that every veteran is a veteran, and each veteran has the ability to access the Veterans Relief Fund with the same amount of money, whether it's two veterans living in the same household or not. They are both veterans. Let's see. One of the things we added in there is that a big one here is mental health evaluations. I have a master's degree in counseling psychology. I work very closely with veterans and their families. I work with some behavioral health with veterans up there. And I can tell you that oftentimes when these veterans are under stress, they can go to very dark places. Right now, as many of you may already know, we are losing approximately 22 veterans a day to suicide. That is an atrocity. And so what we have put in there is for these emergency conditions where a veteran is having severe issues, we want to make sure we can access or get them access to care. We have some wonderful people around here. Yes, there is a crisis line. If anybody has ever tried to use that crisis line or has watched the news and seen the response of people trying to access the VA crisis line, you will find that they've had people not be able to get through for these lines. They're so inundated with veterans. We don't want to have that happen, not in this county. And I can tell you, Clallam County has always been, Tammy, Gary V, they can vouch for this when they've gone to these meetings to talk about the Veterans Relief Program. Clallam County has always led the way. We are a shining example for the Veterans Relief Fund. I have had people ask for copies of our policy and how we run the Veterans Relief Fund. And when I have given it to them, they've actually said, wow, you guys are too strict. And they have turned away our policy because they thought we were too strict. Because of all the things we have in there and all the guidelines and all the things we require to access these funds. So anyways, this mental health piece is a big one. We want to be able to make sure that we can get these veterans, and if we have to, we can pay to get an evaluation done. We have wonderful psychologists like Untitled Chapter out of Port Townsend. We have, who can help up here, we have the Peninsula Behavioral Health as well. Some good folks there. Robert Perry is an outstanding veterans counselor up there. He is starting a private practice as well and does amazing work. These are just some of the examples we can try to get if we have to get these individuals in and get help and prevent them from going down a path we don't want them to go. So mental health evaluations put in there. To me, that is definitely an emergency situation. And I hope you folks will also feel the same way. Are there any questions about that one or concerns?
No, just, it's
Okay.
a good addition. Thank you.
The next one, we looked at, currently our lifetime limit is $3,000 for a veteran. $3,000 over a lifetime, with it's being $1,200 a year. To kind of bring things into line, we looked at it and said that doesn't match up. Well, we looked at a maximum of 3 years assistance and just bring the total lifetime total from $3,000 to $3,600. That way, basically $1,200 a year is the most a veteran can receive in the way, or a family member can receive in the way of assistance.
Was that $1,200 number built based on like a formula? I mean, how did you come up with that?
That, unfortunately, is above my pay grade. I would have to turn towards Tammy and ask, if this is what,
I
yeah.
can answer that.
Perfect.
So at one point, when I came into the position, there were no limitations on our fund. And we had some that had gone well in excess of thousands of dollars. So when we talked about, what we felt was doable, we had talked about the rent, the cost of living around here, and some of the things that went into it. Most of the veterans that were getting help with rent, groceries, utilities. And so when we settled on that 1,000 number, of course, since then, rent has gone up, cost of living has gone up. So we tried to do a number that could incorporate a couple different things to get that veteran up over a bad time. And 1,200 was kind of where we sat. The other piece that you'll find down there with a little bit of the limitations being it, we have the leeway to go up 20% above that, is sometimes you may have a veteran who says, okay, they're up to $1,100, but they've fallen on a hard time, they're going to lose their house, power's getting shut off. It allows us a little leeway for one time to go above that cusp to allow to help them.
So with the number being built based on what people's needs are, how does that relate to what the total budget is?
The budget for this fund is $120,000 in support to, directly support to veterans. That doesn't include the administration, office supplies, things like that. We have been able to stay within that budget the last 3 years. The first year we did have to pull, I believe, $15,000 over, and we've been able to keep it within budget up to that time. We've taken $10,000 per month, and that gets us through. You'll see some months that are above, some months are below, and that's just how it crumbles, unfortunately, with the calendar. But for the most part, we try to stay within those means. And I say we, I am part of the not-for-profit board member, as is Gary, and I'm also on the CCBA.
Thank you. And I'll be honest, she's the go-to person. I don't want to bother her. She's at work, so I got to stay out of it. I'm constantly harassing poor Tammy after hours, and I apologize, Tammy, for that. But because she has been doing it for so many years, she's my go-to person. She's the one that I answer to as well. There's nothing worse than having one person be in charge of things. That's not the way, especially when it comes to taxpayer money. You should always have checks, balances, and people looking over what you're doing. And Tammy, the CCVA, along with just my fellow veterans that come in and ask questions, they're always there, and I love it. I invite people to come in and ask questions. We've had some misinformation get out in the past about the Veterans Relief Fund. I am very much open, and I tell people, if you have questions, come to the center, ask me these questions, and I will answer them as best I can. I want to point out that exception 20%, to go over, I cannot get that done without permission of the CCVA. And I can tell you, there are some, sitting out here right now, there's some individuals that love to ask me the tough questions. Why? What is the story? And so we've got a great release of information, so I can sit down and talk to them about the story of this veteran or that family member and say, this is why they need this. And I can tell you, they're very good caretakers of this fund. Let's see. In fact, on that note, under 7.4, you see confidentiality has been added. We've had some problems with names of veterans, hints about who veterans are, getting legal assistance. We've had this stuff go out into the public. As a counselor, I can tell you that is completely and ethically wrong. This is a fund that is considered a, what's the term I'm looking for here? Welfare fund is the best term. It's basically a welfare, a form of welfare. To breach that confidentiality, not only is it illegal, again, it's ethically wrong to do this. So we want to make sure we protect the privacy of these veterans and these family members so that this sort of thing doesn't happen again. In the past, we've had on the files, when you open the drawer of the files, there's names of the veterans right there on the files. We've gone through, Teresa, one of the workspaces back here, she has done an amazing job of going through all the files and changing this to a special code. Last initial, first initial, last four of the social. Again, bring it in line with the VA kind of policy, the last four. And if it's a veteran in here knows how that goes. What's your last four? That's how you access everything. So we've gone through changing all the files and making sure, so if I open that drawer, that's the first defense right there. Nobody can see anything. For a while, I just have to do this routine as I'm opening the drawer trying to pull a file out. I'm trying to protect it. Not anymore. Now you can look at it, you're not going to know who I'm pulling out of that. So the other thing we're doing now is all the signers, once you guys, if you guys decide to sign off on this, what we're going to have to do is all of the signers will be signing a confidentiality thing saying, anything we see, any story you tell us will not be released to anyone else under penalty of law if we do. It's a standard confidentiality agreement that pretty much everybody has to sign off on. So not only will it be the signers, but all the staff, the work studies that come in and work out of our office will also sign this. Again, just to be ethical and to be polite. These people come into that vet center and they're having challenges quite often. And we want to be respectful of these people when they come in and not be out there adding to the veteran rumor mill about what's going on. Oh, did you see such and such in there? No, not going to happen on my watch. So, confidentiality has been added in there. Do you have any questions or concerns about that? The final thing is the gift card. Scheduled assistance has been limited. Changes mostly to do with the gift card. Gift cards have been a challenge. And we looked long and hard about this. And one of the work studies came in and just kind of looked at me like, hey, dummy, this is how we fix this. So with a gift card, we wanted to help veterans and their families out with food. I can tell you many years ago when I used the relief fund, it was a godsend to have that, to go out and buy food. Now people say, just have them go to the food bank. Okay, sometimes not. If you've ever been to the food bank, sometimes the food bank's not going to be enough. And it's not just food. They may need toiletries, they need some other form of assistance by going to Walmart or whatever else. And so the gift card, and any veterans in here, I guarantee will stand up and say, yes, it's a good thing. But we want to, again, be good caretakers of taxpayer money. We want to make sure these gift cards are being used properly. At one point, we heard a rumor that a veteran did not. Now, the store would not release video to me. I'm not a law enforcement official, so but I really wanted to know if this was true. And so I got very flustered. We had a long discussion with the CCBA. We said, how can we fix this? How can we ensure that these gift cards are being used for food, for toiletries, and just that, or just for fuel? Safeway has it covered. You can get a gift card, you can get From the Heart, which says they only get food. You cannot buy scratch tickets or alcohol or anything like that with it. They also have a separate one that's just for fuel. So Safeway's great. But on the same note, Walmart offers a lot of stuff out there for lower cost. You get more bang for your buck as a veteran sometimes to go out to Walmart. We at one time, we believed that Walmart had a system in place that prevented their gift cards from being used. Chris was a former employee out there, and he goes, I think they might have a thing that says you can't use these gift cards for alcohol. So Chris, right on the money, went out there, talked to Walmart about it. Walmart said, no, we no longer have that in place. So we're going, oh my God, so these folks now, Walmart's selling alcohol, they could possibly do that. We were concerned. So we looked at this, and we had all these, maybe we don't go to Walmart anymore, maybe we'll use other ways to access these gift cards. And, you know, I got way in depth on it, and finally a work study walked in, like I said, and kind of said, bring back a receipt. And we just kind of, oh my God, you're a genius. That makes total sense. So now, when a veteran comes in and they ask for a gift card of some sort, or it's deemed they need a gift card, we will go ahead, apply, and get the gift card. They sign an agreement that says, I have received a gift, I, such and such, have received a gift card in the amount of whatever, $150 for Walmart. I understand and agree that I will not, that this is only to be used for this. And also things saying, I was going to bring them to you, by the way, and I apologize, my computer at the vet center froze up. I could not print one for you. And it says, I will be, basically said, I will be bringing back receipts to show proof of what I have purchased with this gift card. Failure to bring that receipt will result in no further assistance from the Veterans Relief Fund. So they know it is vital that they use these cards correctly. Once they bring that receipt in, I will keep a copy of that and put it in their file to show that they have been good caretakers of the gift cards and the blessings that we've given them through taxpayer funding. So the gift cards, they sign off on all this stuff, and then they get their gift card for assistance. That's one of the big changes as well. Now, as Ken put down here, I think this is, it really helps line up the fund and put it in good operating order. It makes things squared away, as we say in the Marines. Now, does this mean it's perfect? No. I'll tell you right now, if somebody wants to take advantage of the system, if there's somebody out there, a real good con artist, there's always going to be some way to try to get through. Anybody who's ever worked in with any kind of fun, you know it's tough. But all we can do is try to catch us. But the thing I want to put in here that I think is very important, these guys are here to try to make fun of me again, because I was talking to my veterans over there about this tunnel vision. We obsess about, there's always a conspiracy, there's always people out there taking advantage of the system. We've got to watch these people. In the Marine Corps, we had a saying that there's that 10%. That 90% of people are good, 10% of the ones you got to kind of watch out for. That's the same thing with these veterans. I can tell you the impact this Veterans Relief Fund has on our community is amazing. It helps these people, it prevents suicide, it prevents some very bad things from happening. To focus and obsess over one veteran who may get by on something or sneak by for $100 or whatever else, is absolutely absurd. We need to keep focused on the majority and how good this fund is. Track these mistakes or these dangers bring it to our attention, and then let's work together as a group to fix it and shore it up. But again, you know, it's a work in progress. But right now, the way this is set up, and I hope you folks will agree, this is definitely protecting and making us good caretakers of taxpayer money. Are there any questions at all from me or concerns?
I don't have any questions about what you presented today. To me, these look like, you know, very good cleanups. I'm wondering, I can't remember, Jim, is this a special purpose fund, or is this funded each year from the general fund?
A little bit of both. It's a special purpose fund to the extent that it has its own tax, 0.1125, as a property tax, which actually comes out of the county's general fund with the change in the law some years ago restricting, I think it was 2007, restricting regular property taxes not voted for by the people to no more than a 1% increase. It ended up that the exception for the veterans didn't make it into that legislation. That's one of the things that's high on Wassac's list and the Veterans Association list, to get that outside the 1% so that it can be its own tax the way it was originally intended. A lot of people think it was a mistake. Courts don't look at it that way. Anything the legislature actually does is right until they undo it. So it is a general fund. The revenue is a general fund revenue, in that it comes out of general fund taxes. However, we transfer the 0.1125 no matter what, whether it's 1% or not, based on the actual assessed value that has occurred. So it's not restricted to the 1. It gets whatever 0.1125 happens, which then we transfer into a separate fund for expenditure purposes. So it is regular general fund money, but our expenditures we treat as if it's its own tax.
And it looks like it's been almost a year since this function was completely transferred to the nonprofit organization.
Yes.
Has there been any regular reporting to the Board of Commissioners about how many people you've assisted over the last 6 months, and what kind of assistance, that sort of thing?
Actually, what I do is besides talking to Bill and poor Jim, I go in there and I deliver my stuff. He hears me talk about stuff. But besides formal, not yet, to the board. What I do report to every month, I have to report to the Clallam County Veterans Association and present them with a spending spreadsheet of exactly what has happened that month. Itemized list of what is going on. This is what has happened. This is what we spent stuff on. And this is what our budget is. This is how many people. We've even had somebody that's expanded and said, well, since you're working on it, we want to know not just what's going on with the Veterans Relief Fund, but how many people are you seeing in the Veterans Center every month? So we've always kept track of that, but I've never presented to anybody. And I was more than happy to go ahead and start presenting. Last month we saw about 87 people. The prior 2 months we saw 127 people every month, which is far more than any of our history. I've been doing this for 10 years. So the veterans are coming back, and we're seeing a lot more of these individuals. So yes, we are presenting. I would love to come in here and present to you folks whatever you need, and I think it's great for you to be involved and saying, Jeff, what are you guys doing over there with our taxpayer money? Please.
Well, I don't know how my fellow commissioners feel about it, but I think it would be really helpful to have an update, perhaps quarterly or maybe once each trimester or something like that.
Love it.
I'm not sure what you guys might feel is appropriate, but I think we should do it. Yeah,
I think so too.
No, it's a good approach, Mark. Actually, when we made the transfer, there was a comment, and I went back to the notes to double check, that there should be a follow-up. And so I went down, I'm the appointed commissioner, that's the veterans liaison, served on the 25th Infantry Division. And so I went down and checked to see how are things, and they kind of politely prompt, would you come on by and see us? And it worked out real well, because a couple of weeks later, there they are.
Well, I think this is one of the more important aspects of work that we do, and it's important for us to understand what the issues are and what the scope is, and I think the more that we know about that, the better, hopefully, the better we'll be able to
support those efforts in the way that they need to be supported.
I think it's fantastic, and I appreciate the opportunity to come talk about this.
In fact, if you can get in the next, I don't know, 3-6 months ahead of the budgeting schedule, one of the things that surprised me when I went to the office is that there's ceilings in the offices. So if you listen carefully, not only can you have a conversation with the person sitting across from you, but next door. That was one of the things I suggested is for next year's budget, maybe a ceiling money line item would be good.
One of the things I had tickled, or actually Debbie Cook, our budget director, had tickled was at the mid-year review, we were going to ask for a 1-year update because they started in July with the contract taking over running the fund for us. We still double check, the auditor's office, Debbie double checks, turns it into the auditor's office, they double check, it's still subject to state auditor review as well. So we had planned to do that. We could certainly come back or ask them to come back more often than once a year, for the board, if that's what you like. That's no problem. I agree. One thing I would like to say, and just to put some numbers to the change, when Tammy was here and in our office, and we were doing this as a function of the Commissioner's office, after, in the cutbacks that we've had starting in 2009, we used to have a veterans coordinator that was a half-time employee of the county in the Commissioner's office.
Right.
Dick did that. We have had a couple of people do that over the years, and in our cutting back, we just ended up giving a little bit more of Tammy's time and paying for her time out of the Veterans Relief Fund. In 2014, the last full year that Tammy did it, because we made the split halfway through 15, I can tell you that we charged the Veterans Fund $18,000 for salary and $6,000 for benefits, so a total of $24,000. The contract we've entered into with the Veterans Association is for $12,000 flat rate no benefits. So again, while we haven't reduced the amount of money going towards veterans relief, we've taken the administrative overhead in half from $24,000 to $12,000, making that much more money available directly to be given out. And it's really to the benefit of all the volunteers and as Jeff said, his work, that they're doing all the work, and Tammy stayed on as a volunteer board member, and I think they're doing a terrific job, and we're making more money available for the purpose of helping veterans instead of just paying for administrative overhead. I think that was a good decision. It's working well so far.
And can I kind of jump off that? What's important also, that $12,000, we have no paid employees. I am paid by the state as a contractor. I'm very blessed to have the region. I cover Clallam, Jefferson, Kitsap, all the way down to Grey Osborne County. But I'm based up here, and I work out of the Veterans Center there. That $12,000 that comes in, nobody's paid out of that $12,000. That $12,000 goes into the nonprofit, Green Alliance for Veteran Education, which then goes right back out to veterans and their families. It is a win-win for the veterans and the families of our community. So I just want to make sure to point that out. Again, nobody's getting paid for this. We get people coming in all the time going, don't you guys get paid for this? And the volunteers at desk kind of chuckle, and we all kind of, no, what? You guys don't get paid for all this? No, we don't. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand. These service officers that are out here in the audience right now, some of the people that do this stuff, these are people who are passionate about what they do. We love veterans. We love veterans and their families. And they've been caretakers of veterans for many, many, many years, making sure veterans and their families are taken care of in our community. And so it is of utmost importance to me to make sure I do this correctly and I do it right under their tutelage. I mean, it's very important to me.
That's one of the things that was impressed with. It's like, when I stopped by, there's also, you're pretty resourceful. You've got people in work study at Peninsula College on staff. So he's very resourceful, looking at other sources to supply manpower, if you will, other than reaching into his budget. But I cut you off there.
Well, it's just, do you have anything else that you wanted to make any comments that you know of, or?
What's that?
Is there anybody else here that wants any comments we know of, or Mr. Wilson has comments, I suppose? You know Mr. Wilson? Gail Wilson?
We've talked on the phone a couple of times. It's my turn now, but
Go ahead.
Please let the record show that I am a veteran, I am a son of a veteran, I'm a brother of a veteran, a couple of veterans. I have cousins and nieces and nephews who are currently in armed forces. My mom is the owner of 3 flags presented to her from a grateful nation, so nothing I say here today has anything, and should not be used to suggest that I disparage veterans. My concern is the loss of oversight that the county is going to experience by the changes suggested in this fund, in the oversight of this fund. First of all, this is the county responsibility. The way that the resolution was passed, it calls for a county employee to be the overseer of this fund. The changes that we're talking about today are going to make that a contractor, which completely removes county oversight from the administration of this fund. And I think that the original framers of this resolution knew what they were doing when they decided that it would be a county employee who would administer this fund, because whenever a county employee administers this fund, if they screw it up, their job may be on the line. When you put a contractor in there, the only thing that's going to be on the line is the renewal of that contract, or maybe the discontinuation of that contract. So I don't think that you're keeping the proper strictures in place that is required for a fund that is as important as this, and I think this is a very important fund. And I also should add that in 2 other jurisdictions where I have lived, funds similar to this have started off with the best intentions, and the administrators that brought it to the fore moved on, retired, went on with their lives, and other people not as trustworthy came in, and it became a slush fund. It became an insider type slush fund. So that is something, and I know we have turning leadership here now, but when you put something in law and in resolutions like this, it's going to be there forever. And so the next generation of leadership might not be as straightforward and forthcoming as the current administration of this fund. So I think that you've got to think long and hard about the entire future of this fund. Secondly, you're going to lose a county employee if you take that and give it to a contractor. I think your unions are going to be concerned about losing that county employee. Are you going to lose county oversight? I don't know what experience these people have as far as social work. There is some training required in dealing with people for the sensitivity of the information that's being passed. And as you may know, I have spent the last 3 or 4 months publicizing the existence of the Veterans Benefit Fund so that people would know more about it and take advantage of it if they need it. At the same time I started publicizing the Veterans Relief Fund, I made some concerns known about the lack of transparency of the fund. It would be very difficult to, and also, as you may know, this fund is not subject to the open records request. So you're going to have to spend a lot of energy and effort to make sure that what is being done and the methods that it's being done are somehow auditable. Also, the Green Alliance for Veterans Education, I assume that's your organization, and I have not been able to find a 990 form on file since 2010. And
I can help you. Why don't you come by the office and I'll show you our stuff and information.
so do you have 990s up till the current?
Yes, I submit taxes every year. I submit all my stuff to the IRS. I can help you with your research. If
Thank
you
you.
come in, I'll show you what's happening.
If I can pause, there was you tabled an issue that you responded to.
Yeah, just for purposes of the record and for purposes to make sure that Dale and I are on the same page, is that it is not the function of the Veterans Administration that is exempt from the Public Records Act. That is not the case. Everything that Jeff reports to the CCVA, he can certainly come and propose and present here. That is open for the public. The spreadsheets that he referenced, the number of people that they help, what kinds of things the money was used for, all of that is open. What is not open
is details related to specific individuals who are receiving assistance from the fund. So while some people might not recognize the distinction, it is a very important one because it goes back to protecting the privacy of what we cannot, you know, it's an unfortunate term, but it's the one that we have. It's the welfare system, right? That is intended to keep people's privacy and to allow them to come in and get assistance as needed without portraying to the whole world that they're on this program. And so people, because veterans are I guess a population with some distinct needs, is that an accurate characterization? We want to be very cognizant of that. And so there is nothing prohibiting Dale or anyone else from coming in and getting the monthly spreadsheet that Jeff has. There's nothing preventing anyone from asking questions about, you know, how many gift cards go to Walmart on a yearly basis. All of those things are open and accessible, but if you start asking about information for specific recipients, we're not going to release that information to you. Does everybody understand that distinction?
Yes.
That's all I have. Just wanted to make that point clear for the record.
Thank you very much. And so Dale, just to conclude, I'm the liaison for the veterans, very, very supportive of transparency. And so if you run up against an issue where you're not getting what it is you're looking for, will you please reach out to me?
Sure,
I don't know how you go through that twist and turn, but you know as well as I when you come to me in the past for details.
You have always been responsive.
And I'm glad you helped me.
Thank you. The main concerns that I have about the changes suggested are, in my opinion, this needs to remain with a county employee in the oversight somehow, because that way they are concerned about their job and not just the renewal of they have fat in the fire, if you will. I don't know what sort of assets are available to the Green Alliance, but if they were found responsible, and I don't mean necessarily the current leadership, but somewhere in the future, if they were found liable for some payments made out of this fund that were unwarranted, would there be any way to go back and make the fund whole again? So there are several concerns that I would urge the county commissioners to take into consideration before they pass this along. Thank you.
Again, I'd like to address a couple of these because they do hit home. When you talk about, I am Tammy Solinger, the former person who held the position of Veterans Coordinator for over 9 years. Couple things. The RCW allows the legislative authority to choose who runs that fund. There is no designation to a county employee. Most of our counties have volunteer service officers that run that fund as well. The county employee that you speak of is actually a union exempt position, so there are no unions involved. And in this particular case, they didn't lose anything, they actually gained a person from it. So the Veterans Fund was actually sent over to the Veterans Center at half the cost that they were paying for my position. And in addition, you know, the transparency that you speak of, we have a veterans distribution list through the CCBA. This information goes out every single month to anyone who wants to be on this list. I'm happy to add you to it if you'd like. The spending spreadsheets go out. We give the treasurer's reports for the CCBA. You know, we're as transparent as we can possibly get. The state auditor still has the oversight on this. This is still a county function for them to oversee. And interestingly enough, handing it over to Jeff and this not-for-profit has actually increased the oversight from where it was here. There's more oversight than there's probably ever been on this fund before. So, you know, they're crossing their T's and dotting their I's. I don't think they can be any more transparent. He's very open in the meetings. You're always welcome to come to the association meetings where they discuss it. There really isn't anything to hide. It's all out there.
I hope nobody thinks that I've suggested anybody's hiding anything. My main concern is when this goes in as law, it'll be there forever until there's a change in the law or until there is a transgression of the law that is so egregious
So
that
what law are you speaking of?
this Veterans Relief Fund, the ordinance that controls it. It's a county ordinance right now, is my understanding.
It's a county policy, sir.
county policy. It will be enshrined unless and until somebody comes up to change it like it does now, or until somebody damages the fund in such a way that you can't help but change the process. And like I
That's
said,
no different than any other county policy that we have.
oh, I agree, and this one has served us well for a long time, and I'm not suggesting that anything has occurred that is wrong. I'm just saying that these funds are vulnerable in other jurisdictions that I've lived, and the more oversight from an organization or a party who has some skin in the game. And all of the good intentions don't matter. As you said, there's 10% that are going to game the system. And that 10% is going to be found in law enforcement, in veterans organizations, in churches, and everywhere else. So oversight is needed, and I think especially a fund that is very difficult to find out about by open records request. It is all the more reason that you need more county oversight than less.
Question?
Yes, James Preston, resident of Port Angeles, veteran, lawyer in another state, so I don't count as a lawyer here. I want to applaud the suggestion or recommendation that there's going to be a confidentiality agreement that everyone involved in this has to sign. I have a question for the commissioners. Elected officials in this county are exempt from the employee laws, the employment laws that pertain to county employees. So if county employees have to sign confidentiality agreements, well, the commissioners also have to, and every other elected official that deals with this, because I believe there's some allegations here about information that may have been released. It may have been released by an elected official. And I want to make sure going forward that anyone dealing with this has to respect the law, has to respect confidentiality, and this doesn't happen again. I'm more concerned about rogue elected officials than veterans getting a measly $1,200 a year and somehow gaming the system. These people risk their lives. And I think you should be ashamed for what you're saying, that veterans rig the system or play the system.
Sir, nobody said that. Why are you making an accusation?
You said there would be 10% that rig the system.
No, it was actually he that said 10%.
He mentioned it just as let's say, there's 90% of people do great, 10% of people kind of slip up. You referenced 10% will game the system. It's going to be much less than 10%.
I think I used his same 10% reference as you did.
You used it stronger than he did.
Oh, thank you, stronger.
But please, the confidentiality agreement has to apply to everyone. Elected officials, county employees, everybody involved in it.
Let me add this, if there are jurisdictions that don't share our county prosecutor's decision that this is not subject to public records request. So that is a local decision that has been made. It is not necessarily shared by all jurisdictions. So some counties may hold it confidential, some may hold it less confidential. And again, those kind of things can change depending on the leadership and whomever's elected. I am in complete support of the Veterans Relief Fund. I am in complete support of greater county oversight as opposed to turning this over to third parties, because I don't think that you can outsource that responsibility. I think it is similar to outsourcing prisons. When you have a certain disconnect from the people that you convict and they kind of disappear after they're convicted. Well, if you disassociate the county from the Veterans Relief Fund, then you have put one more distance between you and the veterans themselves. And the veterans need to depend on the county because it will always be there when some of these other organizations may or may not be.
No, thanks, Michael. We got a couple of people in the audience who also have to talk.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is...
So just put your name, state your name on the record, and probably best to come closer so the public record can capture the comments. So.
For the public record, my name is David Jell, and I am a veteran, 29 years. I'm a member of the American Legion. I'm also a member of the association that Jeff references. I don't think the board, the commissioners, will find a stronger review and ownership of this program than the veterans themselves. The gentleman, the lawyer, said There might be a few. Jeff said 10, I'm thinking 3%, but we've all served. You look out for your own. This is not a welfare thing in the sense of it's free money. We're responsible for it, as Jeff said, having been a veteran and a beneficiary of it. I don't think you can find better stewards of your tax money than the veterans who are trying to help other veterans. Volunteers, they're not doing it for pay, there's no paycheck for these guys. I don't think you're going to find a better steward as a county employee who has no vested interest than all the veterans pitching in and doing this on their own time. They don't gain the system, they don't gain anything other than serving their friends and other veterans just as they did during their tours.
Thank you.
I'm Teresa Hansen, and I'm a work study over at the Veteran Service Center. I'm also the individual who's been going over the files and reframing how the confidentiality works as documented on the outside of the file so that no other individuals will understand whose file it is. And for me as a veteran, I've held security clearances in the military. As a veteran and as a service member, I was an administrative specialist. I worked under lieutenant colonels, and I understand the importance of security. Working under Jeff Reyes, I find him to be very astute. Working with individuals, not only looking after what's going on in their lives, but what's going on with them mentally too when they come into the office, to make sure they're doing all right. And that's something only a veteran who may have spilled blood in the same mud can understand. The struggles that we go through. There may be somebody that comes in who has severe PTSD. You know, it would be wrong to assume that that person is just deranged. They're trying to get out of the system. This person may be really struggling. And he is very astute in getting documentation. He goes through his checks and balances, and I'm very proud to be working underneath him. And I think anybody who comes in contact could understand this. Thank you.
Thank you. In response to that, let me add one more thing. A part of my resume includes time spent working with homeless veterans, and it was a wonderful organization, had several facilities in several states, and received a lot of money from the Department of Commerce and others, the Veterans Administration. And they would bring in what they called AmeriCorps workers and interns and that sort of thing, 18, 19-year-old kids who would come in and do part of the records keeping and that and so forth. And so, yes, as much as you want to keep this confidential, when you've got 18, 19-year-old kids who may not be veterans, who may be there just for the summer, when you allow them access to these things, your confidentiality is certainly at risk. And I don't suggest that that's ever happened here. I'm just saying that it can happen, and it does happen in other organizations.
Sherry Washington, I'm a work study under Jeff Reyes. Just to address something you said, every organization deals with stuff. Mismanagement of funds, everything. We don't. Jeff has always been transparent about everything we do. And for you to sit there and assume, and this is the way I took it, maybe my own opinion, I accept that, you were hitting Jeff saying, you know, mismanagement of funds. He has invited you to the office numerous times to come ask him questions, and you have not come once. And I'm sorry, this is personal to me, very personal. Jeff Reyes is good, he's been transparent with everything. You can go talk to veterans on the street who Jeff has personally helped. And for you to sit there and say, oh, the county can do a better job, no. Humans are all going to be the same. People have ethical issues they deal with. That is unique to each individual. We've been very transparent with everything we've done, and there's no need for you to even say, well, this should only be held by a county, because anyone in that position has the chance to actually misuse anything. So please do not do those personal attacks. I don't appreciate them at all.
You have misunderstood or misconstrued anything that I've said. I have said nothing against Jeff nor any of the veterans organizations.
You implied that the county would do a better job of managing managing funds. That is not correct. Any person in a position of authority has that opportunity to do something wrong.
There's already been one issue where somebody has gamed the system since it's come under this particular form of management, and I think they have taken quick action on that. And so the point I'm making
And
is,
so you're saying
this
nothing
is,
that...
I didn't interrupt you, please interrupt me. I think the organizations are doing a great job right now. I'm saying when you put this into policy, it's going to be there for years. Other personnel will come in, which makes you less secure in who the new people coming in. You may be dead and gone before it happens, but if there is a way, somebody will game the system.
And so you're not saying that that's not possible for an elected official to game the system? That is not correct. I'm very sorry, but your assumptions are wrong. I gotta go.
Anybody else wishing to make comment? And for the record, you are?
My name is Richard Stumbaugh, and yes, I'm a veteran. I'm a director for Sarge's Place and a director for Voices for Veterans, so I'm active in veterans issues. I was the veterans assistant for the county for a number of years. The reason that the county had to move that position to a different location than from the courthouse was the disruptive nature of veterans, family members in tow, coming through to try to find out where the veterans assistant was. The other issue is that the reason that the veterans are there is that they need help. And generally the help that they need is through a service officer. So what we have is Jeff Reyes's program. The Resource Center also has service officers there. And what you're familiar with service officers? Okay. What they do is they allow the veterans to access the VA benefits that they deserve. And so if you have questions about why they moved it, that should answer that. The other point I'd like to make is return on investment. The $120,000 that the county spends brings in millions from veterans benefits. There is a web page that the VA maintains. It's a geographic distribution of funds. You should look up that web page and print out the geographic distribution of funds over the history. I think they only maintain about 6 years of records on that, but you can see what Clallam County gains in veterans benefits by using that web page. Thank you. And thank you for supporting veterans. Clallam County has been phenomenal in that aspect.
Yes, sir. Christian Pritchard, resident veteran, and also work study at the Resource Center. I just want to make one observation. I think we're all intelligent enough to realize that there's an overwhelming support for Jeff and the work that he does. So the veterans community is pretty much behind him 100%. I'd just like you gentlemen to take that into consideration when you decide what to do moving forward. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
My name is Gary Bailey. I'm a veteran. I'm also the president of the Clallam County Veterans Association. Accountability and transparency of our funds is primary. There is not a penny that is spent on a veteran in this county, either from the Clallam County Veterans Association or from the Relief Association, that is not accounted for on paper. The money that we get from the county that we run the Veterans Relief with is accounted for every month by Jeff on a spreadsheet that is open to anybody. Money that the Veterans Association receives from the membership from our members and also from our donations is accounted for to the penny. Every year we pass a budget for expenditures that we know we're going to have. Those monies can be paid without bringing it back to the association because we discuss the budget and pass it. Everything that's not covered in that budget, there's not a check written that doesn't come before the association and all of the veterans approve it. So our organization is 12 to 15 veterans organizations, nationally chartered, that are part of the Veterans Association. If you're going to game anything, you're going to have to game 12 to 15 veterans organization people that aren't stupid. We've all been around the ball one more time, and it's not going to happen. Everything, if you wanted more county accountability and oversight, it's going to cost you money. There's no county employees that work for free, other than Tammy puts in about another 80 hours a month that she doesn't get paid for. But when the job went from Tammy to the Northwest Veterans Association, Veterans Resource Center, over $12,000 came back to veterans rather than going out into administration costs. So you can't get a better deal than we've got. The policy being in place, it'll be in place until it's changed. And it's going to be changed by the organization that's in existence at the time. At the present time, the Veterans Association is here. We're doing the very best job we can with what we've got. And there's nobody here that cares more about veterans than all of us.
Gentlemen, may I ask, is the...
Mr. Wilson, I think, would you...
Oh, I'm sorry.
I've got someone else who'd like to speak first. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Gary Bailey. I'm glad you're here. One of the things that I like to bring up, I think the point you're trying to make, is no one's demeaning veterans by saying a non-veteran should look at what's going on. And an example of that is a few years ago, Chapter 9 of the DAV was missing a lot of money. This was not the current one, but formerly. They were stealing, apparently, and they lost their jobs. No one was prosecuted. So I think what's being offered, and Gary Bailey, I'm glad you spoke, sir. A good example of what's wrong with veterans groups is they tend to get very prejudicial. They see things only as a veteran. And in the case of CCVA, in which Gary is the president, they don't like draftees. And so in their position, they've been able to discriminate against draftees. And that's a fact, Gary, and you know it. They recommend to the city that I not be allowed to put plaques in Veterans Park honoring draftees, which is pure nonsense. They think the draftees are legitimate veterans, and I think what you're talking about, they get prejudicial. And you, city council or commissioners, have allowed them to do it because you're a member of that group. They were organized 20 years ago, and I think the correct term, I'm not a lawyer, is ex-politico. Let me see. The correct term is, it's Article 3, Section 6. The Clallam County Commissioners shall be deemed as members in an ex officio capacity. And because you are county commissioners, you are a member of CCVA. And because you're a member of CCVA, you allowed them to discriminate against me, a draftee. And I think that should change. I don't question what Jeff is saying. I've dealt with these. I know veterans. They do an exquisite job of helping veterans navigate the system. And it's very, very complex. But this thing about having non-veterans review veterans makes perfect logical sense. And as CCVA has gone rogue, in a sense, they were designed 20 years ago as a nonprofit to specifically advise commissioners on veterans affairs, not to advise the city on a public veterans park. And they should be stripped of that ability. You guys are members, you can do it. Thank you.
Gentlemen, is a plan to transfer oversight to the Clallam County Veterans Administration or to Green Alliance for Veterans Education? Which would be the overseer of this fund if this is put into place?
First of all, that ship sailed last June. We entered, the commissioners, the Clallam County entered into a contract with the Northwest Veterans Alliance to do the administration, not the oversight. The CCVA is the overseeing body, but to do the administration of the fund. And so we've already entered into that contract almost a year ago. This is just updating the policy to reflect the technical variation. Instead of calling an employee, calling it either a contractor or employee. employee, and then to add a couple changes that the Veterans Association thought were prudent.
So what you're saying is this contract is illegal because it requires an employee, but now you have not got an employee, but you have turned it over to a contractor, so perhaps that contract is void and might need to be revisited.
You'd have to talk to an attorney about that, but this
Did you talk to an attorney about this?
This is a policy that was going to get updated as soon as we had the chance, and we waited for the CCBA to make the recommendations to the commissioners. This is bringing it back. Did it happen in advance? No.
If these gentlemen are ex officio members of the CCBA, would it be a conflict of interest for them to transfer something to that oversight? That might be something else to talk to the attorney about. I'm all in favor of the Veterans Help Fund. I'm all in favor of the Clallam County Veterans Association. I'm just suggesting that you're about to offload some of your responsibility, and I hate to see you do that.
And the other thing I'd like to say that I pointed out a little bit earlier, it is still reviewed, overseen, double-checked by a budget director before it goes to our auditor for the payment, and then the auditor's office checks it also to make sure that all the correct and proper paperwork and policies are followed. And then the files are maintained for the state auditor to do that when they come in every year as well. So I think there's a lot of oversight.
I was wondering if Jeff could tell us a little bit more about his education as well.
I currently have a master's degree in counseling psychology. I worked out in Princeton Behavioral Health. My bachelor's is also in psychology. I am a contractor with the State Department of Veterans Affairs. My responsibilities, as I said, cover Clallam, Jefferson, Kitsap, all the way down to Grace Harbor. I oversee the regional Vet Corps program for the state, which is part of the AmeriCorps program. The veterans I work with are outstanding individuals, and I shouldn't say just veterans, but also their family members that are part of Vet Corps positions. They connect with veterans and their families, assisting them to get the resources they need in those counties as well. I am very blessed to be able to work for the state. I've been there, like I said, for about 10 years as a contractor. I'm very proud to be a part of that. I'm very proud of my education and what I've done with that. I am currently entered in, working now, hopefully someday, God willing, I will actually get my private practice up and running, which is a private practice counselor as well. That's my education.
Thanks. Anybody else have comments?
Just quickly, I just want to make sure that you understand when part of the reason this waited as long as it did is because we really wanted to get the program running over there, seeing if there was anything like the mental health evaluations that we weren't including currently. So we allowed a 6-month to see if there was any changes that needed to be done prior to making those changes here. We vetted this with the CCBA in January. We also did it in February, and we hope to have the final bracing on it on Wednesday, which is our next meeting. This is only draft. None of these changes have been done. It still needs to go to legal. It still needs to come back to you in the public hearings. So this is just the starting point of this particular policy.
Anybody else? Yep.
Hi, my name is Maggie Roth. I've lived in the county for 36 years. Of the 36 years, 20 years ago, when this program was in the private hands of the certain organizations, the funds were being run out like it was a slush fund, and several individuals decided that they needed to step up and help get this control of this program. I've seen 4 people who have been hired to manage the meeting in the 20 years that I've been involved. Until Tammy took over the program, we didn't have the control that we have. And this county should be very thankful for the time and efforts that Tammy has put into it. And it's progressed to what it is today with Jeff taking over. And I see absolutely nothing wrong with what Jeff is doing, and I think this policy is a positive thing for this county. And I think that our veterans have, in the last 20 years, seen progression. And Jeff is our future for our veterans, and I support what he does. And like I said, for 20 years, I've seen this program progress to what it is today. So with CCBA, with Gary, with Tammy, with Jeff, the way that the county commissioners have progressed,
I support what I see today, and I hope that you guys do also, because it's very important for these veterans. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
First, I want to apologize to the commissioners. I apologize for kind of losing my temper there a few moments ago. I do want to thank the commissioners for your support of veterans. I mean that from my heart. I've never been in a county that has been so supportive of veterans, and I sincerely thank you for everything you do for them. And I have to reiterate what's been said here previously. People that wore the uniform never really take it off. I'm an Air Force officer 24 hours a day. It's never changed. Anybody who's in the Marines is always a Marine. You don't do anything to disgrace your service, in or out of the service. That's what military people do. There's a lot of elected officials. There's a lot of civic employees that never wore the uniform that have done some really bad things. You're going to find more of them than you are in the military. This system works. And I was glad to hear Tammy say that this is just the beginning of the policy. It's going to be open for discussion. It's going to be open for legal review. And again, I can't emphasize enough the confidentiality. And frankly, if there was a breach in the past of individuals receiving this benefit by an elected official, there should be an investigation. I don't know if that's being done, but it really should be done.
Short comment, sir. For the obvious, and for gentlemen, Jeff does a great job. We're all there. Commissioner Peach, you said you're the liaison commissioner. The answer, or maybe the obvious statement of oversight is you're all welcome to attend at any meeting. I know you come down from what I've heard. You've been invited. You've been to at least one meeting I've attended. I don't know what kind of more oversight you could have from the commissioners, an open meeting that the veterans themselves have that vested interest in. Thank you.
Any other comments?
If I could just grab that, Mike. I look forward to working with you on this one. I like your idea that, we try to have another meeting. I'd like to bias it right ahead of budget, because I listened to Jeff, and they're doing good, but I'd like to support them.
I agree, and certainly the issue of accountability is important to everybody. There's no question about that. I like the idea that a group of veterans is the first layer of accountability. I think that makes very good sense. It's the same concept as keeping government as local as possible, just a different level. And to me, it's a shame that so much of the conversation today has been about, making sure that someone's not, not buying a six-pack of beer with their gift card. What we should be talking about is, are veterans getting the services that they need? Is this the right funding? And I think that in addition to the accountability, which I think will be improved through some regular reporting, that also ought to help elevate the conversation and broaden the conversation so that we as commissioners and the community has the opportunity to better understand what the needs of veterans are. Adding the mental health evaluation. Who knows how that's going to change what the perceived need is. And if we're actually talking about that, you're reporting that to us publicly, we're talking about it, that gives the public a better chance to understand what we're talking about. So I'm very hopeful that we can find a way to develop the accountability, which everybody believes is important, but move the conversation to a more beneficial and productive place.
So next steps, it sounds like we move this policy to legal for their review.
Next step was wait for their final. This was just their draft for discussion purposes, which I thought I heard Tammy say was going to happen this week. Then move it to legal, then put it on the website as we do for 30 days, waiting for public comment, and then we have the 2 public hearings.
Great. 2 other things I'd like to add. Number 1, at some point, I think as this moves forward, I think the commissioners should take a look at what the cost benefit and the cost analysis of actually moving that veterans fund out of the general fund as a standalone. As I understand it, that's possible. It does impact the general fund, but it would continue to put that fund, the veterans fund, on solid financial footing, and I think it's something that I've wanted to do for a number of years, but haven't had a second commissioner support me in that. And so I'd like to, at some point, bring that back to the table as we move toward budget time, because ultimately that has to occur, and that would solidify the fund as it is. If you look back over the history, we have traditionally transferred money from the general fund reserves to the veterans fund because it doesn't generate enough money on its own. So we should probably do that work, and if not this year, you certainly should take a look at it. You guys should take a look at it, see if you want to recommend that we do it, first of all, and if we do, then either this year or next year, folks should begin to look at that, because eventually there'll be another transfer of general fund reserves needed, probably. Secondly, my request would be, I have read the newspaper articles with regards to the controversy on draftees that seems to have emanated. I certainly wish you guys would take a look at that, see what you could do. I know many people who were drafted. I think they're veterans. I've always treated them as a veteran, and I've thanked them for their service. And, you know, they may not have voluntarily signed up, but they didn't leave the country either. They did serve. So, I don't understand why we can't have a plaque in Veterans Park honoring draftees. I think my guess is we find there's a lot of draftees in this community who served, and I don't understand the obfuscation. So my guess is, as we move forward, are draftees eligible for this fund as veterans? Yes. So my guess is it would be better, it would behoove all of you to kind of take this issue off the table and begin to bring a healing process that could occur. And if it takes public recognition in a city-owned park, we have lots of plaques in lots of parks, and I wander by them. They're all over the place, and I know that maybe I don't fully understand what that plaque means, but I know that the people who placed that plaque, it meant a lot to them, and it would begin to heal our community. And we're so divisive right now that this one seems like an easy one to begin to heal. And if we could get the veterans group to support that activity, I think that the Board of Commissioners would support the request back to the city, and I suspect the city, former mayor, deputy mayor, kids in the audience, so I would suspect that she would help champion that through to get a plaque in place, but we need your support. So I'm willing to support you guys. I'm willing to support moving the fund, the tax out of the general fund, if we can get it done this year. If not, hopefully the board will next year. But I'm asking for this issue so that we can begin to heal as a community, and maybe in some small way in Clallam County, heal as a nation with regards to draftees who served, it didn't flee. And, you know, that's a different, they served. So, and I actually have friends who were drafted, and that's just my request. So I would support as drafted. I have no problems with the policy. I have no problems with how the fund is being operated. I personally support moving the veterans money out of the general fund and as a standalone, and even though it's an implication to the general fund, I've supported that for a long time. I've traditionally supported, on at least 2 occasions that I can remember, fairly large transfers of money from general fund reserves into the veterans fund. I think that's a matter of public record, so I've never made a request. So today, for me, I'm making a request to, if you could revisit that. You're asking a lot of us. You're asking a lot of trust out of us. But it seems like we should go moving forward on that issue. And I don't understand all the ins and outs, but I'm just making a request. So do with it as you please.
If I can respond, actually, I agree. I'm completely out of that loop.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's out of my pay grade. I'm just the guy who interviews the veterans that comes in, and then I have oversight.
You know people.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, maybe revisit it. So if you agree, that would be great. So but it sounds like we'll move. Give us a recommendation after Wednesday's meeting. We'll move it to legal. we'll move to the public hearings, and then hopefully we'll get our evaluation at some point of the budget impact of removing veterans from the general fund. So it's a standalone, that frees up, as I understand it, frees up some money for veterans versus the general fund. Is that right?
Actually, because of the support and lack of the legal support in past years, we've already done it. We made this move in 2010 in effect. We put every penny in the general fund, or that came into the general fund, even though it was more expensive. We didn't actually even receive that much money out of the 1%. We have, since 2010, transferred every penny over as if it was its own tax. What we were waiting for to legally do it, it was the legislature to make it its own fund so that the veterans could come to the commissioners and ask for an increase in the 0.1125. That's what we haven't done, is increase the 0.1125, but we have transferred, just as you suggested, because prior to 2010, we were limited to the 1%, and when the assessed value didn't go up, which it started going down in 2008, 9, and 10, we started giving the Veterans Fund less money because it was affected by the 1%. We turned that around in 10 and have given them every penny since. In fact, we made a catch-up payment. So we actually have, in effect, done it without legally doing it. But what we haven't done is responded to them. We could increase up to 0.25%. That's what we have not done.
That's what I'm saying. We should make that increase.
Okay, that we have not done.
Right, and the reason it hasn't been done by previous boards is it directly impacted the
Yes,
general.
it comes completely out of the
But
general.
that's what I'm supporting. is
Okay,
increasing
all right, that's a different, and we can do that.
Because if you look at what we've transferred over the years, we may as well just increase it, and then that fund would be fully funded, so.
Acknowledge reality.
Acknowledge reality, so
Okay.
that was.
That we have not done, you're
And that's
correct.
what we should do.
Okay.
Anyway, anybody else? Yep.
Just one last statement. And I thank you for supporting my Epic Honor Craft Days and a public Veterans Park. Jeff said something earlier that I always thought was true. A veteran is a veteran is a veteran unless you're a draftee dealing with CCVA. Then you're not a veteran. You don't even deserve to be honored in a public park. Thank you.
Hopefully that's an issue that can be taken up and move forward, and maybe Jeff, you can help in some small way. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Appreciate it.
We'll await your recommendation on Wednesday's meeting, and then we'll move forward next week with the comments of the public hearings. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys very much.
I'm sorry, I didn't give you my name. You know my name?
Thank you.
Go ahead, Bruce. Okay. The Parks Department proposes an update of the comprehensive master plan. The master plan, the past one that expired, I don't know if expires the right word, but anyway, it expired at the end of last year, so this is an update of the 10-year plan. A lot of the changes are just wordsmith, grammar, updating information. We've added 2 parks since it was last updated. The Eagle Point property and Thompson Road property. We also sort of lost a park. It was property that was donated, that the Parks Department thought it was donated to the Parks Department, but it was actually donated to Public Works. That's Scrivener property on the kitchen table, so they are actually managing it. So we've taken it out of our master plan. We've also just updated population numbers. We did have a survey that we ran last year, so the results of that survey have now been added to the master plan. That's about it. Pretty basic.
And the Parks Board's looked at all this?
Yes, the Park Board we've had a committee working on it for a long time, 6 months at least, and the board has approved the changes. It's also currently on our website for the public to view.
We'll take a call for the public hearing a week from tomorrow. No objection?
And Bruce, when we do the call for hearing, I mean, this executive summary is fine, but we'll need the red pencil strike through of the full policy, which we don't have. We'll need that for the call for hearing and to put on the website.
Okay, and just give that to Trish.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We'll need that next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got just a quick question. Can you tell me how the Parks Plan was updated prior to policies 4, 61, 62, and 63 being created? Those, if I understand correctly, provide direction for how to, in essence, update the Parks Plan if you want to add a new park.
Correct.
And whatnot.
Or a facility.
Right. How did that process happen before those policies? Because it looks like those were just, well, I guess 2009 seemed to be a few years ago. But did they change a previous method, or was it just not a method previously?
Maybe Jim can answer that.
We had a single policy that covered, without great detail, any and all changes to the parks, and it went to the park board, and then they made recommendations brought to the commissioners. And the park board decided that it would be real, because there was some confusion. The park board decided it'd be better if they split it into 3 different policies for 3 different kinds of changes. And that's what happened. There used to be just one policy that covered all of it without a lot of specificity. Basically said, bring it to the park board, they'll bring it to the commissioners, and didn't say much else.
Was there an event that predicated that policy change, or is it just sort of a regular cleanup? Or
It happened about the time when we were looking at Robin Hill Farm as a site for the disc golf course.
Okay. Thanks.
Quick question on the survey. What was the one thing that came out of the survey that was kind of surprising to you?
Nothing real surprise. Some of from the previous survey that we had done, some of the order of the improvements that the public was wanting changed a little bit. We did have a much larger response to this 2015 survey as opposed to the previous one, so that was good to see as well.
So we'll call for the public hearing next week.
Thank you very much.
Public Works, a request for waiver for bid for the purchase of 2 pneumatic tire compactors.
This is a request for an addition to our capital budget in ERR, replacing an item that's in there right now, eliminating a $250 manual food truck and replacing it, and proposing to replace it with the purchase of these 2 compactors, pneumatic tire compactors for $108,725. So that the net is a reduction of about $141,000 in the capital budget. Tom deserves a lot of credit for finding the opportunity to do this. We've been renting these compactors for 36 to 40,000 a year. So we're purchasing them at about 50,000 apiece, a little over 50,000 apiece plus tax, or including tax. So they'll pay, purchasing them will pay for the rental costs that we were incurring in probably about 3 years. Saves some money on capital costs because the cost of purchasing these items on the market is far more than what the opportunity that we had to purchase these particular 2 compactors at this point in time. So we save some money on capital costs, and we also, of course, save the cost that we were previously incurring on an annual basis for rental. And Tom is here if you have any more questions on this. I just give him a lot of credit for finding this opportunity that I think is going to serve us well going into the future.
Don, where'd you find the good deal?
Actually, the company that we're purchasing from is the same company that we've been renting from. They've had a name change, a corporate change, and they've decided to kind of get out of the compactor business, and they did an inventory in their yard and said these 2 are going to go. And considering that we've rented from them in the past, they're kind of giving us first shot, but King County's hard on our heels for them because they're not a whole well, a lot of them around or available for use because they're very seasonal. And actually, the 2 machines specifically that we're looking at, the hours on them, we've put on. There are hours we've rented the last 2 years. They got 2 brand new ones in a couple of years ago, and these are the same machines that we have been using. So those are our hours, and it's an exceptional deal. Just an exceptional deal, and it's not going to be very long.
Are you just going to roll the boom truck over to next year?
Both Tom and Ross have been reevaluating, along with the road crews, the need for the boom truck as opposed to a standalone man lift. And so they just needed a little more time to sort that decision out. We could find the boom truck and or man lifts coming back into the capital budget this year. We've got additional slack in that budget compared to what was originally approved. Plus, there's a couple of items in the list that we now know are going to be quite a bit less expensive than we previously thought. The brooms.
Yeah, the mechanical, the pickup brooms, the industry expectation.
So you may hear more about the man lift and the boom truck later on.
And this is required by policy to come to the commissioners because it's more than $50,000. I mean, it would have been just a trade in capital, and they could have done it themselves, except that it was over 50. So both the awarding of the contract to a sole source provider, which obviously is always the case when it's trading, when they're a unique vehicle like this, and the awarding of the expenditures has to come to the full board because it's more than 50.
How many more hours do you think the equipment has left?
Probably 8,000 to 10,000 at least a piece.
Oh, really?
It's
15 to 20 years.
Real solid financial return on this.
Yeah, my expectation, I'll set useful life on these things, probably 20 years.
Can you wait a week? Or will they wait, will they hold it another week?
Yeah.
Call them. Sounds like you got verbal commitment to move forward next week, so.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.
And thank you,
Yeah.
Tom was, I think, did an excellent job recognizing this kind of opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. Good job. Agreement for the Carlsborg School project. Just another trade.
This is another easement on Jennifer Place or Jennifer Court, which is a road, a private road off to the east of Carlsborg Road. And we're doing the usual here, exchanging a sewer connection for for the sewer easement on that property.
Any questions?
No.
So then amendment with Grey Osborne, modifying the scope of work to include construction management.
This is an amendment which we've had the possibility of contracting with Grey and Osborne identified early on in the process for construction management. I didn't really want to enter into that amendment with them until we got to the stage that we are with the design work and the bid opening and all of that. I kind of want to keep the possibility open as we considered in-house how much county staff versus how much consultant staff versus whether we wanted the design consultant to also do construction management and so forth. And we kind of sorted all of that out. As you may recall, earlier I brought you the possibility that we'll do some of the construction management with county staff. We probably will end up doing some, but it turns out in discussing with Joe, Donisi, and Ross that they are going to be pretty involved in other county projects this year, so the survey staff may not be available to us, and some of the inspection staff that we're proposing to use also may not be available to us. The amount of money involved in construction management is still consistent with what I had estimated earlier. It's just that more of it will be done with the consultant and less of it with the county staff. I would point out also that within this contract amendment, there are a couple of subs that Grey and Osborne have identified. A local surveyor will be involved. I think it's quite land office. There's quite a bit of testing involved in this project, and I think they've subcontracted with NTI to do that. So the other thing I would point out is that their intention is to try to find somebody local that can do contract inspection work on this project so that they don't have to relocate one of their people here. So if you hear of anybody that is in the market for a one-year involvement in contract inspection and has experience along those lines, let me know and I'll get the contact information to Grey and Osborne.
So how much extra, I'm not finding what we're adding, how much we're adding to the contract?
974 county contingencies.
That's just for the construction management?
Yep.
But as Bob said, that was already allocated to do it in-house. Some of it in-house, some of it out-house. It's not an increase in the projected amount for construction management. It's just
excessive.
Pardon me?
This is excessive, $10 million project just for construction management?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
I do. I don't buy it. I don't buy that 10% project cost is just for construction management. I might buy it on top of the engineering and the permitting. That's you bring me some industry standards that say 10% of a project cost, all right, 10% for just project management as industry standard, some sort of industry standard. That seems really high.
Well, I'm familiar with appraisal and water projects. And, 5-6% is real typical. I think I heard you say there's some things going on in here, such as surveying and soil testing. It's not contract management. So, kind of along the lines of what Mike's thinking is, the $1 million, how much of that's just flat out the person that's on the ground doing the contract management? How much of that is other engineering-related activity?
Well, attached to this is this table here at the very last page that breaks out who the actors are, how much time each person has got involved, and who the subcontractors are.
So what was, in the engineer's estimate, how much were you already estimating for construction management?
I'd have to go back, but it was 900 and something. I can't remember exactly.
So this isn't any new money, it's just new people, just a different firm, so they're doing it in-house.
Yeah, instead of doing part of it in-house and part of it with the consultant, we're doing more of it with the consultant and less of it in-house is what this boils down to.
How does that impact total cost?
Pardon me?
How does that impact total cost?
It doesn't from what I previously estimated.
Because in your allocation of expense for the internal, you've done loading. And that's going
Of course, what you'll see shortly is a reevaluation of the total project cost that reflects the bid prices, or the bid opening that we just had. So the total project cost will go down, assuming that the apparent low bidder is the contractors that we avoid.
You're blown away?
Yeah, I'm a little suspicious that the bids come in like $1 million less, and then all of a sudden we're being asked to approve a contract for $1 million for reconstruct for, it just, I'm sorry, I'm just not buying it.
Well, I'm not asking for anything more than what we had previously identified anyway.
So let's,
in this decision to go with the contract amendment for Grey Osborne was made by Ross and myself before we opened bids too. So it doesn't reflect anything at all. We didn't say, hey, we've saved some money on the bids, so let's put more of it into engineering. We didn't do that at all.
But you can come up with a variance analysis total project that says, here's what you had originally appraised or projected, here's what you're proposing, and what are the variances.
So let's bring that back to this work session.
Just do the math. They must have 50 people on this job site because it's a 2-year project, $10 million, they're gonna make $1 million. I want that job. How many people are they gonna have construction managing? That's, somebody just explain to me how a firm can spend $1 million overseeing an 18-month project, for less than 18 months. We're gonna start in April, we'll be done by April.
Well, again, I'd encourage you to look at this exhibit.
I am looking at it.
It does describe what the principal is going to be involved in, what the project manager will be involved in. I do think there will be probably quite a bit of individual effort working with individual property owners as they identify their need to connect and where they're going to get connected, and whether the elevation of their foundation is such that it can by gravity reach the sewer. So there's a lot of work for our project manager. The project engineer is going to be involved in a lot of that. There's some structural engineering that will still take place, primarily with regard to the pump station, and quite a bit of electrical work that is necessary with the pump station, electrical inspection and engineering. And then, of course, the big one is the field inspector hours.
So just again, bear with me. What's a year? How many hours is a full-time employee working a year? About 2,000.
Yeah, 2008.
2008. So just look at column 3. Project engineer hours. Total hours 1892. Less than a year's worth of work. And that cost is $246,000. Again, that is not fair to the taxpayer. Nobody makes that kind of money. I doubt if the contractor's making that kind of money. The people doing the work, that's too. How do you justify for less than a year's worth of hours $245,000? That taxpayer dollars going to work for less than 1 year's worth of work.
I'm sorry, which?
Column 3, project engineer hours. If you go down, hour estimate 1892, which by everybody's agreement is less than 1 year's worth of work for one employee. Billing range, billing rate, and then somehow comes out to $245,000. Now either your math is wrong, or that's insane.
That's a billing rate. It's not the salary.
That's the company making $246,000 for hiring one person for 1 year on the taxpayer dime. I'm not going to sign this contract. You guys can, but I'm not going to look at
Mike, I'll tell you though that these loading rates and these overhead rates that go into that
They can take
are
their
not
business and go somewhere else than in the taxpayer Clallam County.
It would be helpful for me
Jeez,
to...
That's embarrassing.
To be able to look at this in context, like if more of it were managed in-house, you know, as you were over the last number of months comparing different scenarios, you know, in order for me to fully understand why you're pushing this scenario, it would be helpful to know what you compared it to and you know, a little bit more about your decision-making process, because I was also, you know, I'm not as familiar yet with projects of this scope, but you know, I had a similar thought when I reviewed it over the weekend, is that's, there are pieces of it that seem
So,
like a huge amount of money, and I need to understand why you're trying to point us in that.
Field inspector, 1 year's worth of wage hours, almost $300,000 for the field inspector. We could hire a full-time engineer, pay for roughly 5 years worth of their work for that kind of money, 4 years worth of work. Again, I'm not saying that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to look the taxpayers in the eye and say, yeah, there was one person, a field inspector, on the job for a year, and their firm made almost $300,000 of your taxpayer dollars. You guys can do it. You guys can go to the Chamber of Commerce, but you don't think people are going to poke holes in that? And it's going to be a front page story? That's insane. And that's just flat out ripping off the taxpayer.
So Bob, I'm familiar with...
It's not getting it. You're not competitive. It's flat out rip off. It's what people are pissed about in government. They see that and they get really mad. So go ahead, move forward with it without my vote.
let me do a couple of things here. Let me respond to Commissioner Ozias' question to how does this compare with, if we were doing more of this with county staff, how does that compare? I'll tell you right now, and I've told you before, we would save money doing that. The problem is, Ross is telling me and Joe Denisi is telling me he doesn't have the time to spare because we've got trail projects that our people are working on. Our surveyors are pretty much fully booked. And so if you take them off of those projects, then we've got to do something to hire somebody to replace what they were going to do, I guess. So,
what about going out to bid for contract management?
We could do that, and we would find that anybody that is doing this kind of work is going to give you the same kind of overhead billing rates that Grey and Osborne are doing, if not higher. Grey and Osborne actually saves money because they're very familiar with the design that is being installed. So, I think we, compared to, dragging somebody separate outside and making sure that they're familiar with what the design is and what's being put in the ground, there's a learning curve that they would have to go through. The second thing I would suggest I would do is get from Grey and Osborne. I got it earlier when we were doing the design contract, but get a complete breakdown of their billing rates and what goes into that and why it's, as it is. I can just tell you from a lot of experience over quite a few years with this kind of work, these are not unusual billing rates. They might even be lower than usual.
So Bob, I agree with you because I've handled this kind of project before. The issue that I think we ought to study though is, can we save the taxpayers money? It sounds crazy, but maybe even by hiring. Is there an allocation of manpower?
Right, well, that's the question. And if manpower is issue, and I know it's not necessarily just as easy as saying that, because there's a hiring process and training, and there are other aspects that go into that. But if we can get a qualified county employee who will be able to help with other projects for several years for the same amount of money,
You saved a ton of money on the Elmore River Bridge by project managing it. You yourself told me last week you were restructuring and we were going to have an engineer on this project, and then we were going to hire a junior engineer. Did you know these numbers were coming like this?
Not at the time I talked to you, and I did.
Well, this is a chance, though. The statement that's been made to you is that capacity within the engineering department doesn't have access to handle this project.
Yeah, with Rosser here, I don't have the ability to say, what he should do with his staff. He's basically telling me what he can do with his staff.
Well, he told the administrator something else, that he was going to have a full-time engineer on this project, and he was going to hire a junior engineer. As you retired and Ross got a big pay raise, that was what we were going to do. And now, it's fine. I can't justify these costs. And I don't care what the industry standards are. This is Clallam County. These are our taxpayers. And for the next 9 months, I'm still responsible for their dollars. I'm not going to pay somebody a year and we billed $292,000 for 1 year's worth of work. I'm not going to do that. I don't care what the industry standards are. Maybe the industry standards need to change. That's highway robbery of the taxpayer. And I don't think if you went out and bid it, and it was a competitive process, there aren't other engineers, there aren't local engineers, there aren't local firms that would say, holy smokes, we could do it for half that, make money.
I'm sure you would not find that.
Well, okay.
The thing that I see though.
You can't bid this anyway. You
In box
have to go through a proposal process.
The county could hire contractors, subcontractors. You gotta do something to bring these costs down. Or go to the Chamber of Commerce and explain why you're spending this kind of money. I mean, that's why do you think the taxpayers are so upset?
So the thing that I picked up on his comment, Mike, was the capacity we have in engineering is now being used to do, to my mind, a lesser complicated project such as trail management. So I'm thinking, well, why don't we take our good horsepower, put it on this project, and then ask Ross what would he need for trail type of engineering, hoping that it's a lower cost. But I don't know.
There would be savings, I think, in that. But again, you'd have to talk to Ross about who he's got and what he needs for them to be doing.
And I'll talk to him about those very things. I mean, one of the things when this was proposed to come forward before I saw the actual sheet on Thursday was that this was going to save us money, and I'm not necessarily seeing that it will. So I will talk to Ross. I would like to look at what an in-house is. Commissioner Zayas, you're exactly right. If I'm a great believer in hiring in-house staff who are capable of doing this work, because then we have some additional, there's additional minds and boots on the ground to do other things as it comes along. And so I would like to look at a comparison of that before we even consider going here. I mean, we might go to proposals if we don't, I mean, I know we charge a heck of a lot when we do a fully loaded cost as well for all the cost of benefits and indirects and everything else when we charge it. But I still think there ought to be a savings if we were to bring this in-house, and I'd like to look at that. I would like to look at that. Yeah, absolutely. I would like to see that cost-benefit analysis before you proceed. I was going to have them do that in the week before, in between, if you passed it on to next week, I was going to bring back a cost-benefit analysis.
But I'll tell you from experience, this isn't like building a $50,000 road.
No.
Okay, the cost of a lawsuit, if we don't perform directly, is many, many multiples of this. And so you want a firm that's qualified, that carries the proper insurance. I have no problems with competitive bidding. I got no hang up about this particular thing. But don't invite somebody that's not qualified to carry the financial impact of just a mistake.
I mean, there's no question that our loaded rate is less than a consultant's loaded rate. And if there are some things that we can gear up for and do with our own staff, we will save some money. It's just that I was being told, and I believe Ross is right on this, is that his staff is fully committed for the work that they've got going this summer.
Let's break down that barrier.
Well, why didn't Ross talk to his boss? Since his boss was giving his boss information, that's also pretty troubling. How you were updated.
Well, I just didn't see the numbers before when you and I talked on Tuesday. I hadn't seen the numbers.
At some point, you had talked to Ross at a game plan. Ross changed the game plan, and he didn't talk to you. Once again, that's a problem, Jim. So it's difficult to sit here and say, as the administrator, you're caught blindsided, the board's upset. That's not a good position.
No, it isn't.
I'll shut up.
And I just want to say, I want to reiterate, this number that we see here is no different, or little different. I'm not sure what exactly was in the previous one, but you've seen a number for construction management that is of this magnitude several times before.
Actually, I don't know what we have. We were told that we were going to do that in-house. That's the difference. We were told we would hire some junior engineers, our senior engineers could work on this, and the money that we would save would be used to hire those people.
What I said, and I want to be clear, is we did an estimate of what it would cost for construction management, assuming we contracted for it. And then I said, I think if we can do some of this in-house, we'll save some money. particularly surveying and maybe some of the inspection work. Turns out that Ross doesn't feel that he has the time to do that. So the estimate...
That's the problem that you're missing.
But the estimate for construction management has not changed.
You know what changes? Is that it's one guy, 1 year, $300,000.
That's more than one guy.
No, it isn't. Well, here's what it
One guy worth of time.
That's the problem you're dealing with, Bob, is you've got people at this table that are not familiar with projects of this scope.
No, I am familiar, but how many people are they really going to have out there for field engineering, for field inspection? It's not like you're going to, how many people are you going to?
It depends on what stage. I mean, at some stages they're going to have 2, 3, maybe 4 out there. At some other stages they'll have less.
I'm not voting for it. So you guys can vote for it, or we figure something else out. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to stiff the taxpayer for that kind of money.
So it's
It doesn't even impact one little portion of the county. How do you do that? How do you justify a contract like that? You can't. You can't justify it.
As we analyze the alternatives, Bob, is there a timeline associated with when we complete looking at all of our, and when is that?
In order to get the interest rate reduction on the $10 million loan, we have to be finished with construction by April 1st of 2017.
Okay.
And we have allowed
How much is that interest rate? How much is that difference of interest?
about 220.
So you only spend $1 million to save $200,000 of interest.
Well, I'm not, no.
That's not going to work.
That's
So do we have a month left, Bob, to dissect this issue?
Pardon?
Do we have a month to study our alternatives?
Is the finance committee?
Yeah, you probably have about that. I'm anticipating and hoping at least that we get to award by middle of April.
That gives us time.
Yes,
Gives us some time.
I would propose not moving this forward for the 15th and let us reanalyze and bring it back to you with different alternatives.
I think that sounds like a good one.
If we were to put this out for an RFP, that might strain the timeline a bit. But we could do that, if that's what you decide you want to do. I'm just telling you that I don't think you're going to get much response, and I don't think you would get anything.
You need to bring it in-house. Let's just be honest. You need to bring it in-house. You need to figure out what it's going to be.
That's what we're price.
And Ross has had retirements, and he's got more retirements, and there was a great plan to bring in some junior engineers to work on the trail and some of these small road projects while the senior engineers oversaw this project. That plan.
And that was
This
what I
way,
thought it
it's
was going to
staying
be.
in a county, and it's good for the organization to bring some new engineers in. First of all, we're going to sign this, and he's still going to want to bring in his junior engineers sometime this year.
Yes, he is.
So that's not going to work for me. That's my point. This needs to be done in-house. And a great way for him to rebuild his engineering staff and get some engineers, some experience on some of these minor projects, and he's got senior engineers that can do this work. If they can oversee the project management of the Elwha River Bridge in-house, generally, as some consultants, I get that. I think they can do a sewer project in Carlsborg. Great things.
And we will bring that analysis back to you.
The issue I see, Mark, is that the problem-solving approach that they're taking has worked real well for the last 5, 7 years. Well, ever since 2008, there's a crunch financially, and the last thing you ever think about is hiring staff.
Right.
I don't think it's
I
think that's where they're at.
Well, Mike's right, we've got a couple of guys retiring that we can hire the new staff now based on this money, train them up, and then when the other people retire and we're down projects, now replace them. That's the way to do it. And that's what I thought we were doing.
Much better use of these dollars.
Right.
Just sign a contract with a consultant who's not going to keep those dollars here, not building long-term stability in the code department and the engineering department, and not bringing in people that will be trained up into your next generation of engineers. This is the perfect time and the perfect opportunity to do that. That's why I'm disappointed that somehow that changed without you being brought into that discussion.
That's what I was saying, Mark, because I think that the department heads are accustomed to, I'm going to manage to the penny, and the last thing I'll do is come to this board with a proposal to increase my budget with people cost.
Yeah, I think Ross and I should have gone to Jim and I think we were in a hurry to get this kind of...
And when I heard about it, I was assured it was going to be their professionalism and would be less money, but it's clearly not when I saw it. Less money. And I like the idea of managing our staff better to let us hire some junior people to get them working for us off of most of this money. It won't be all of it, obviously, there's some technical things that some of this will have to be done out-house, but in-house, I think we can afford to hire a couple of people and get them trained up and move over our senior engineers, and they can do this job very, very well.
Right, and if this whole thing is a thought process or exercise that Ross has already undertaken, then we need to understand that analysis. And that sort of goes back to my comment about needing the context. That's the context that you can put these, a couple plans up against each other and make the decision about which one makes more sense.
And the places, the opportunity for savings is in that column 3 in the field inspector. Those are where the opportunities really are.
No disrespect to Grey Osborne, they made many millions of dollars on the taxpayer. They're not here. So I don't feel all that warm and fuzzy about giving them another million for another year. They've made plenty of money. They've made plenty of money. Believe me, they have made a ton of money on this project, so. Let's do something good for the organization.
They've also done a very good job on this project.
Yeah. Well, let's not screw things up, to save a nickel, but I do see an opportunity to.
Yeah, me too. I see it as a much more beneficial to the overall organization to use some of this money, and like you said, column 3, column 5 or 6, that amount of money, we can hire 2 new people that we otherwise wouldn't hire. And let's get them working, get them boots on the ground, get them trained up, and then they're already here when the other people retire in 2 years and 3 years. I think that is an advantage to us as an organization. It may not end up saving a lot of money, but it should save some, but it definitely will be a big advantage.
Investing in our community,
yes,
and we're not signing a contract that leaves the community.
The money's not leaving the community, it's a huge savings in it.
We're building the next generation. And honestly, we'll save money.
It's a much...
We're not paying people these kinds of wages.
Right.
We'll find good people.
Right, yes.
We're not paying an engineer for 1 year's worth of work. It's not costing us $300,000, it's costing us about $80,000. The average employee wage is about, with benefits, is about $80,000. This is $300,000 for 1 year's worth of work. People who say they want government to run like a business, you might want to rethink that.
We'll bring it back.
That's a pretty good lucrative business. It's all profit. That guy doing the field work is not making $300,000.
No, of course not. It's a loaded rate. It pays for a lot of things within the firm.
You might want to check his wage, their wage, what's their benefit package, how much really goes to that one.
I'll get that
employee compared to the county. I'll find a better wage, better benefit. We can keep it under. So,
but they would have an engineer checking that engineer's work. And through that kind of process, they can keep their insurance costs down. And I don't know if you can tease that out of their rate structure, but it's not the person on the ground you're buying. It's a certain percentage of that person's work. It first gets quality control, and then both of those sets of work go to an engineer that proves that a senior engineer. And then you've got all your business, your internal loading costs, but one of the biggest is going to be your insurance. Especially on a project that's...
If you look at the Elmo River Bridge, which is also many millions of dollars, it's made very complicated. We did a really good job in managing most of that. I guess at some point, we have to break out that analysis.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, I'm not at all resistant to what you're saying, because I think that you're right, that if we can use this as an opportunity to also build some permanent capabilities that we're going to need when I and some others retire, I don't see a downside to that. We've got
that's a real positive.
We've got a lot to do, and it's our time to do it.
We'll work on that, and we'll bring it back to you with those options.
Anything else for general discussion, future agenda items?
Mike, I tossed something in my calendar about the possibility we were going to have a work session. The commissioners are going to have, it's follow-up to charter review.
Yeah, that's scheduled for March 28th. Is that going to be scheduled for the afternoon?
Yes, I believe that's going to be a 1 or 1:30 time as well. We've talked about it with
for charter review.
Norma, yeah.
Is that what you were talking about, Bill?
For some reason, Mike, I tossed on my calendar for today, possible work session on charter.
It was possible, but Norma couldn't make it, and so she gave us the 28th date.
So it's just
Yeah.
Right. Let's just set it for 1:30 on the 23rd.
Yeah.
And that'll probably be a couple hours.
Yes, I would expect.
Just to go through, and they have a list of, I think it's 10 recommendations that they wanted the county to, or somewhere, 8 or 10, for the county commission. And you said that the sheriff and the auditor were doing some work on the pace.
Yes, the assessor and the sheriff, and the auditor, and Mary Ellen, I mean, everybody's involved.
All of them going to bring a recommendation to that meeting?
I believe they are. I think that's their target date, is what the assessor told me. She's kind of leading the project, and I've been giving her information that I had developed a year ago and helping her update it. So,
And then one of the recommendations had to do with the transparency of our commissioner meetings. And I'm wondering if Deb could show, because the work that we're doing with her actually goes directly to one of the recommendations that was made.
sure. She's on vacation this week, but when she gets back next week, I can talk to her about it.
On the 28th?
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll have called for a request for proposal by that date.
I'm thinking not next week, not possibly next week, because we're almost ready with our recommendations. But I didn't want to do it this week with her being gone. And so next week, that's the other one, the request for proposals for videotaping. That's basically almost ready to go. And I didn't, like I say, could have pushed it and had it this week, but with her being on vacation, didn't want to.
And the other one we're making progress on is because of Mark, and it deals with Jim's evaluation. And
I don't have an update yet, so.
You've been carrying all the water, so I want to help. But is there something that you could bring to the table on the 28th?
Yes, there should be.
Cool.
Anything else that you remember that was on that? This was like a review that I guess between now and then. Anything else? Anybody wants to add? This will add the, we'll know that we'll have a discussion again on the project management. Then we'll need a recommendation out of the finance committee as well.
And do we have something scheduled for the conversation I mentioned about the Trust Land Advisory Committee? Basically what they've asked for is to postpone, if they've got a deadline, a report deadline. And so I was in Olympia last week, I apologize.
If they want to bring something asking for a postponement, we can just say that in a resolution.
Okay.
I don't know who's overseeing that, now that Cindy's gone. Nobody.
Trish is trying to pick it up before Lonnie gets in, so she's, I know she sent an email today out to the Timber Advisory Committee, trying to step in and ask them, so she's trying to catch up those things.
Well, how about if I reach out to Joe Murray, President? Because what I was suggesting at the meeting, they asked me, and I said, wait, I've got to discuss this with commissioners. But in response, I said, it'd be really nice if you could come and speak to us at a work session, or just give us a one-page bullet. We're not looking for some 500 page.
They want to move their deadline into next year.
And that's what they
I don't think
asked.
they wanted me to be here. You guys are voting on this.
Yeah. Because remember, we gave that committee a life, right? At the end of December.
Right, they wanted an extension.
They do, they want to move it into next year. Which is good, that would be a good conversation for people to have this fall when they're running for commissioner.
For the two candidates in the room?
I want to think about that, so.
But what I was hoping to do is facilitate their request with a discussion with the commissioners, and so my question is, should I reach to Joe Murray and get somebody from that committee to show up here and explain why do you want this extension?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't mind hearing that.
Okay.
Yeah, they just need more time.
I think that's what.
I think it'd be good. I think it'd be good for this conversation to occur this public, this fall, in the public arena, by people running for office, as to what they're doing, and by then it'll be real public, and let the public weigh in, which they never had a chance to weigh in before this committee was formed. Now they will, in what direction it should go, and people can talk about what they think the committee should be working on. So I give them all the time to do that.
I'd like as much transparency as I can.
Yeah, and so would the public. The public would like to weigh in on where this committee's going.
And so what's occurring with that committee on March 25th, that meeting date is set for a conversation about fiduciary responsibility. And there'll be two lawyers speaking on the side that says that responsibility is to the schools and the junior taxi districts. And there'll be two lawyers speaking to, no, the entire state. Everybody in the state of Washington is a beneficiary. And therefore, that affects how you manage your land. In fact, if it's the entire state, maybe you don't even manage it for money. Anyway, stimulating conversation that will occur. And kind of where they are is they will, at March 25, have heard this. They really haven't had a chance to digest, according to the timeline that we're given. So I consider it a legit request to push out the
No one's saying this. All they need to do is make it, and they'll get it. They need 2 years. I just want the conversation to occur this fall in the public arena, because it was a conversation that didn't occur in the public arena when it was formed. I wanted to go to the voters, and we wanted to do that. Well, now it's going to go to the voters, because this committee is going to be front and center for people running for office this fall. So that's all I wanted.
I'll reach out to Joe and see if we can get somebody.
Okay. You never talked about it. I mean, it was formed after the fact.
And as I said, Trish sent an email this morning asking them for their help on what they would like to see from her. So she's stepping in for.
And Mark, the commissioners gave this, I don't know if we'll call it artificial, but there was this intermediate report deadline. And I think in managing that committee, the issue was you guys don't get to take a whole year and come back and tell us you didn't make any progress.
Right.
Give us a status report. That's all we're asking. No bias with regard to what is the status.
Schedule the status report and ask them to ask for more time to do the final report. That'd be great. Whenever Joe wants to come to our agenda, probably now will be April, first part of April. And I assume you guys never really move forward providing mileage to that community. Because our budget request really came to us.
Not yet.
And that's my fault. There was actually a sheet that was, so everybody that attended the January meeting identified the mileage. And somehow we need to get hold of the city because I don't know the damn sheet.
Trish has it.
Exactly.
But again, no decision was made by the commissioners or formally asked on how we want to go about doing it. Policy already allows it to be done, so now it's a budget question. Right. Do we want to add to the budget? And so we asked everybody to keep turning in their mileage in the event that the commissioners agreed to do a budget emergency. We're just waiting for basically you or somebody to tell Cindy, Trish, me how you'd like to proceed with that, because it isn't a policy change. Policy already allows it. It's just that we didn't budget for it.
All I was going to do is take that sheet, whatever is the government rate, and give a 1 month times 12, and that's the estimate.
We were going to reach out to the other department heads and elected officials who have committees to find out if they wanted to.
I did, and they didn't. Again, it was just an additional tax. It's almost never been asked. People volunteer. That was the discussion. We had it at the elected official department head meeting, and it was like, okay, we're giving it to some, we're not giving it to others. I guess what's going to happen is everybody will then be, it's not fair if we give it to everybody. It will be an expense. But at the same time, people are spending a great deal of time and money, and by law, by both IRS regulation and by our own policy, we're allowed to reimburse them for that. It's just, we just have to choose to budget as a priority over other budget items.
We should reward the behavior of the volunteers. And I appreciate your support on this. I didn't budget for it. I actually never thought about it. And that's kind of our message is,
yes.
If you want to do something like this, pencil it out, put it in the budget, put some visibility.
And I did tell each of them, if your committee believes that, as we're doing it here, they have an equal need, want, and desire for the money, you need to bring back a budget request, budget emergency to the board to get that money in. I haven't heard anything back yet, but it's only been a week.
Well, that, for this committee, should be brought up with your extra authority.
As far as the amount of money?
Yeah.
Oh, you think so? Does that work that way?
Yes and no. Travel is only the board.
We have a travel budget for the commissioners. Just come out of our travel budget.
Oh, it could come out of your travel budget, but then I'd be taking it away from you.
I don't travel, so I don't care.
I'm not the one burning up money.
That I could do, but I could, because it's just a travel issue, non-departmental travel, and I could move it from one travel line to another without asking for a budget emergency if it only amounted to that amount.
I'm certainly not opposed to reimbursing people for mileage, but I think we need to be very careful about fairness and make sure that we understand what we've done the best job we can to understand what the implications are going to be as they ripple out. And it may be that the department heads have yet said, well, I would like to see that for my committee too. But once one committee, gets it, then it won't be long.
We'll get around.
Right, before that's going to be common practice for every committee. And, I'm going to need to understand what that looks like.
You've seen cycle. One time the county had large travel budgets through recessions. We cut it. You're probably on an upswing, and then when your next recession comes, you'll cut it. So it'll be something that you can give and take depending on the budget. But when it comes down to saving jobs or keeping travel budgets, over the years the commissioners have whacked the travel budgets down to nothing. Now if people want to bring the travel budgets back up, that'll be great until you have to make cuts again.
And exactly what you said, in the commissioner's office for this year, we have $5,000 in the travel budget. That used to be $30,000 when I first got it, in the commissioner's travel budget.
You can add it back, but at some point you'll take it away. You can't keep those kind of programs. There's just nothing, you end up laying people off to keep paying people travel. And that makes no sense. But we're not in a recession. I guarantee you guys will be in one at some point. You'll have budget cuts to make. We'll look at it. Well, that's just the reality. We're going to have another recession.
And just one last thing, the climate change action team, is that the leftover? Didn't we have that?
At the meeting, Mark was going to put together a plan as to what he wanted the board to support as far as reinstituting the committee.
Yeah,
okay.
And I'm working on that. So I should have an update by next week.
At some point, we have a resolution that probably would be updated. Mark puts together what he thinks the committee should look like and who would work on it. Last time it was all internal, whatever he wants. So I'll support whatever kind of committee you want to form. Take a look at that issue.
You think, is that maybe the RCND people?
Yes, I've reached out to a couple of different groups like that, and I'm trying to put a cogent plan together for talking to you guys about it.
Because they did a really good job managing that Department of Ecology contract in terms of reaching out and getting good people to work the project.
They're a great resource.
Yeah.
Okay. If there's nothing else, we'll end this week's meeting. The next week's meeting will be tomorrow. Super. All right.